Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
But so in Cincinnati, where are you stationed at generally?
So I live north of the city, about 25 minutes north, slightly east. And I grew up here. I lived in North Carolina for 12 years, kind of post-college and before kids. And moved back here about 8 years ago. Okay. So yeah, I do a lot of work in Cincinnati. Dayton is a nearby city that I also do a lot of work in, and then a fair amount of virtual clients. So not everybody I work with is in this area. But yeah. What about you? Where are you?
I'm near LA.
Okay. Right.
I'm about 30 minutes south of LA.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, then you're still having warm summer weather, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Wait, it's cold this week, but the next week it's going to jump right back to 100, 105.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
There are times I sit here and I'm thinking I should just move out of state. It is way too high here.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you grow up there though? You said
Yes.
Your mom is there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I grew up here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's good and bad everywhere.
As I've talked to different people, especially with the show, they're like, yeah, because one of them lives out in Wyoming. I was like, I hear that's a great place. He's like, yeah, for businesses, for people, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, are we talking stereotypical rednecks? He's like, the South is pretty civil compared to up here. And I'm like, we're talking Northern Idaho bad. Got it.
Yep. Yeah. Wyoming is still the wild territory, I think.
Yeah. And he's like, but if you have an LLC, definitely form it here. I'll just put it that way.
That's good to know.
Right. I was like, okay, cool. So I'm just curious, generally, so you do most of your stuff 60% in person and 40% online, or what's the ratio for you?
I would say it is more, it's probably about 60 to 70 virtual, even though a lot of my clients are in this area. The coaching piece, we do a lot of virtual because it's just more convenient. I don't necessarily need to be in the same room with my clients. The speaking that I do locally is almost always now in person. Obviously, during COVID, it was virtual.
Yeah.
And that's starting to kind of spread beyond this area and kind of move outside of the greater Cincinnati region. So, but yeah, once I establish a relationship with a client, even if they, I have a client who I could get to his office in 10 minutes, but most weeks we meet virtually because it's just more effective and efficient. And
yeah, I say mostly business owners and managers. I'm assuming that's predominantly your clientele.
You got it.
We're already always in front of the computer, so we might as well just quickly click the link in the calendar and get to her.
Got it. You got it. Yeah. But it is great. I mean, I am intentional about if I can meet with you in person, we'll do it from time to time just because it does really deepen the relationship. And, it's just, you can't replace being across the table from someone.
Yeah. Especially the unseen, unmeasurable, just the energy you can get somewhere. It's silly to say you can fake it on Zoom because they can't feel it. But there's still certain nuances your personality that bleeds through if you don't want it to.
Right. But yeah, it's still there. It still feels like there's a barrier, right?
Yeah. So I'm just curious, how long have you been a coach and doing your ACEND method?
Yeah. So, I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years.
Okay.
I started out doing a lot of hands-on office organizing and working side by side with small business owners from more of let's get your information organized. Let's work on, calendar time management. Let's document processes and procedures. And then in the last 8 years, I've stepped much more into being coach and consultant. So the ACEND method, I've been refining it honestly for the last 10 years, but kind of gave it its name and its official title this year, but it's the methodology that I've been refining and using with clients for the past 8 to 10 years.
That's awesome. So you they were in the beginning, I'm just from what the little they were hiring you to help them organize their schedule, then make procedures and all that.
Yes.
Pretty much like you come in, tell them everything wrong with the business, but then also say, this is how you fix it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it does. It starts with what's working well, what's not working well, what's missing. And then kind of prioritizing, all right, the parts that are not working well, and the parts that are missing, how do we want to get this improved in the workflow and the team and the, execution of your business. And then, yes, like unlike a consultant who will say like, okay, go do it. I have always continued to support clients and kind of be the accountability partner and the mastermind partner to help them with implementing the changes that we identify and improving the processes and kind of being a partner to them and for them. So most of my clients, I continue to work with them for many years, sometimes, more than 1 year, just kind of being that in a sense. I had a client the other day who said, you're kind of like my board of directors of one. So, just a second brain to and an outside perspective, right? Mm-hmm. We can't always see our greatest faults ourselves. We need an extra set of eyes to help identify it.
That's very true. It is. Yeah. So I'm just curious then, when they retain you that long, do they pay you like a retainer fee, or is it like the one lump sum baked in with that pricing?
So, it has evolved over the years. Okay. And I typically work in 90-day increments with clients. I don't know if you are a fan of like the 90-day year. But
a lot of people have told me that it's much easier just to work in quarterly sections with people. So.
Yeah. So typically, an engagement starts with either a 3 or a 6 month engagement based on how much support I know they're going to need up front. And then when we get to that 90 or that 80-day mark, then we'll determine, okay, what progress have we made? What continues to be on the, on the priority list? And are we going to continue working together? And, and then, I have a lot of clients that, again, the ones that, I've been working with for 18, 24 months, that, it's rolling until if or when they tell me they want to stop rolling. But yeah, we kind of look at things in a 90-day time frame that feels really comfortable to the clients. It's nice and clean. It obviously, matches up with how most people are running their business from a 4-quarter perspective. That's awesome. It's great.
So I'm curious then. So like the coaching itself is probably one rate and it's the Zoom, but if they like actually want you to come to their place and like observe for a week or two, I'm assuming the price goes way up for that.
For sure. Yes. Yeah. Okay. If it's removing me from the day-to-day services with other clients, then that price comes at a premium for sure. I typically don't have to spend, 5 or 10 business days with a client to really get a understanding of how things are working. But yes, if I come out to their place of business and am on site, then, I kind of have, sometimes I'll also, if a company already has like, hey, typically we have a travel stipend and then a, consultant budget, I'll kind of work with them on that, but kind of separate out the travel component from the services.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was just one of those, a lot of entrepreneurs, but especially like coaches and consultants like you have told me, they're like, how did the one man say it to me? He was like, I don't like going to clients' businesses anymore. And he's like, because it became a whole headache and my assistant just hates me for it. He's like, so I charge him like 50x. If they actually pick my 50x in my rate, then it's hard to argue.
Yeah, right. It would be, it's worth the inconvenience, right?
Yeah. And I was like, I'm scared to ask what your normal rate is. He's like, right? You don't want to know. I'm like, I do, but I don't at the same time.
Right.
But honestly, I'm loving the energy. I'll cut up the other stuff earlier. Can you give us a more proper introduction of yourself?
I sure can. So my name is Elisabeth Galperin, and I have a business productivity coaching and consulting company. Kind of have several different ways that I work with clients. So one-to-one business coaching, and we're always working together through the lens of how can my client become a more productive individual, and how can their business become more productive, therefore profitable. I also do a lot of speaking, whether it's keynote speaking for a conference, perhaps a organization that's having a convention, and sometimes come in and do a half day or a full day training for an organization. And then also working with a company long-term, more from a personal and professional development programming piece, where I am working with entire teams or all employees, and typically engage with them in those 90-day cycles of time to train and then be supportive for implementation of new, systems and strategies, and then also accountability. That's a really strong piece that makes the work that I do have a lasting impression and a lasting impact, is teaching my clients the value of accountability, the importance of accountability, and then being the accountability partner for them, either short-term or long-term. As humans, we tend to think we can hold ourselves accountable best, but in reality, we're our worst accountability partner.
Yeah. There's many times I'm like, oh, I'm going to go hit the gym. And I get to the gym. I'm like, Carl's Jr. sounds better.
Right. Exactly. And nobody's watching, right? Nobody is necessarily going to be at home to give us the high five for working out. And no one's necessarily going to be at home judging us because we came home with the hamburger and fries.
Right.
And so it's all in our head that we struggle. As soon as we have somebody else that knows what our plan is, we have much more of a incentive to stick with the plan and commit to the actions.
Oh, 100%. Me and my one friend, I was having trouble drinking water and she was too. So I'm like, hey, how about we make it a game? I'm a very competitive person. I don't seem like it, but I am. I'm like, if whoever drinks X amount of water by this time wins, the loser owes that person $5.
Yeah. That's great. Gamification, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a great tool to use, either on a small scale like that, or even, company-wide. That's why a lot of companies do have, rewards. I talk with a lot of my clients about when you're building a habit, one of the pieces that we all need to include in that process is rewarding ourselves.
Yes.
And so the idea of, only kids need, the gold star or need a prize. Adults, professionals, entrepreneurs, we all need that reward. It just is, you got to make sure that the reward is in alignment with the goal, right?
Yeah.
Using it with an accountability partner, or with a team, it's a great way to get positive peer pressure to work to your advantage.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm curious for you, what are some of the situations that you come into and you start applying your ACEND methods with?
Yeah. So typically when I have a individual business owner who is looking for a coach and for some support in becoming more productive, they are the number one word I hear them use is, I am overwhelmed. I have so many things to do and not enough time to do it. Right. I want to hire help or bring in team, but I don't feel like I even know how to hand over responsibilities, or I'm terrible at delegation, and I'm afraid that I'll hire someone and I'll still end up doing the work. So there's overwhelm, there's fear of letting go of some of the tasks and responsibilities. And, oftentimes it's also a professional who they are still the master of their craft. They aren't necessarily masterful in business acumen.
Yes.
And so they're trying to figure out, I'm a great architect, but how do I run an architect firm? I'm a great massage therapist, but how do I open up a, studio where I'm creating opportunity for 5 or 6 massage therapists and, we're serving more people. So, so they're often looking for the guidance and advice to continue to be able to work in their business, but to have a better framework for how to work on the business. Because, again, anybody that has been in business for more than a couple of days realizes that's that balance that's so hard to figure out.
It really is.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious then, because you mentioned the massage therapist, and I actually know a friend that's doing it. She just now is getting the whole massage therapy. I told her to read E-Myth, and I said, look at it as more of like a structure, because he does it more for like storefronts and product, but I'm like, the same thing could apply for you.
Right.
And, but yeah, it was just one of those, I'm curious. So what were some of the clients, like, let's say the massage therapist or hair salon thing, that they would call you and say, what am I supposed to do?
And most of my clients are more service-based. Yeah. So, lawyers, accountants, and CPAs. I have worked with a handful of, physical therapists or athletic trainers. But again, most of my clients are more in that, service and not, so much, the product. They're coming to me saying, I know that I could be doing things more effectively, more efficiently. But I realize that I need an outside perspective. I realize that I can't do it on my own, or it's going to take too long to do it on my own. And so, how can you help me? And then that's where, the first step is, I call it a deep dive session. And it's where we do peel back the layers, and layer by layer, figure out what's working well, what's not working well, what goals have you set, and how have you either accomplished them, not accomplished them, made progress, but not, to the level that you want. So really getting an understanding of every entrepreneur or business owner, they start with a big vision, right? Mm-hmm. And, but that sometimes they get lost in the day to day and they almost lose sight of the vision. So getting back to, okay, that was the original vision. Is that still the direction you're going in? And then like I have a client that I work with now, and one of the most poignant things that we were able to accomplish in the first 3 months was really getting to his why he wants to have the accounting business. And, that it's about more than just helping people with their taxes and doing it ethically. Right.
Right.
And so, making sure if they haven't yet connected the vision and the why with their day-to-day operations, making sure that they see the connection, so that on the days where you wake up and you don't quite have the immediate excitement or motivation, you can tap into that and remember that, some of the day-to-day tasks, they do feel a little boring, or they do feel mundane, or they don't feel like you're making a huge impact directly through that task, but being able to see the bigger picture, and reminding them that, the little things that I'm doing day by day by day are getting me closer to the goals for the year, the big vision, and that they are in alignment with my why.
That's the craziest part for me that I've come to realize that, and I joke when I mean it in the best possible way, that a lot of entrepreneurs will need people like you, because they don't have the kind, sympathetic way of saying, you're being an idiot, you're looking here when you're supposed to go here.
Yeah, well, it's easy. You can either stay in that creative space, right? Of like just staying at that 10,000 foot view and not being able to get down into the details. Or you get buried in the details and you forget to see the forest for the trees. And that's where, just like I use this analogy all the time, if you think about athletes in the sports world, nobody gets to the top on their own. They have so many mentors, and they have guidance from coaches, and they have specialized coaches, and they have teammates. And, so in the entrepreneurial world and in the business world, oftentimes it's like, well, I just have to do this on my own. And that's, I think in a way it's like the American way, right? Like it's tough and it's hard and grind it out, but that is not the path to success. It's not the easy path or the straightest path.
Yeah. Well, what I tell people when they ask for advice, I'm like, well, first year, just bootstrap it because you can't afford shit. So just bootstrap it, learn as much as you can. But when you start getting cash, don't pay yourself. Just save enough for your taxes, then pay someone else to figure it out.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. I mean, that if there's anything that I could go back and do differently, it would have been getting others to support me and help me sooner. I definitely had in the early years that mindset of, well, I might not know it, but I can learn it. So I'll just put in all the extra, blood, sweat, and tears and learn it myself. And it would have been a much faster path to success if I had just been willing to admit that I don't have to be great at everything. I get to be good at my area of skill set. And then I get to find people who are experts that will support me.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I've gotten with people, because they're like, oh, you talk to all these great coaches and this and that. I'm like, what I just told you earlier, like that's it. That's the secret sauce that people are willing to pay for.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But I'm just curious for you, a hypothetical. Have you worked with like warehouses or big companies?
I have worked with the office team of manufacturing organizations.
Okay, so that's interesting. Okay.
Yes. So here's the observation. A lot of manufacturing and warehouse, they are very focused on the efficiencies on the floor, right? Yes. Whether it's, there's so many different systems that have to do with warehouse and that vein. But when you look at how their office is operating, they're not prioritizing productivity, automation, efficiency, nearly at the same level. And so that's been, I think, when I realized that I could use the language of what they're focusing on in the warehouse and bring it into, hey, if this is the values that you have for your team out on the floor for safety and certainly, for efficiency and for profitability, how do we use that same language up here in the office, even though we're talking about, your computers and your paperwork and your billables and, so, but I have never I've never tried to specialize in productivity from the sense of manufacturing and getting into that portion of it.
The only reason I asked is one of my old stories. I accidentally gave consultancy without knowing it. I was working security, really long story short. Essentially, this one guy had a tattoo on his neck of a gate with fire and demon spawn coming out of it. We'll call him Chuck. Chuck was saying he wanted to break his leg instead of working one day here. And he's like, I'd rather break my leg and be home for 6 months than work one day here. And I didn't realize it, but I'm like this one guy in a beat up Ford Ranger would always come. His name's Kirk, and he'd be like, "Oh, howdy, Josh, my howdy, Kirk," joking about, "I didn't need see that badge of yours," kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That was a security guard, and he's like, "Oh, that's why we pay you a lot of money." I'm like, well, not me, I get pennies, but
right.
And that's where then, after a while, a couple of days later, he shows up, and that's where I saw Chuck. And he walks by and he's like, hey, you're a very observant security guard, well, person in general. This warehouse is my baby. It's what got me where I am as a district manager, essentially the CEO of the region. And I immediately clicked. I'm like, oh, wait, I just essentially made friends with the CEO of the region.
Interesting.
And he's like, why is my baby dying? I'm like, well, that guy with the tattoo. He's like, yeah, Chuck. I'm like, well, Chuck rather wish pain for 6 months than one day here. I'm like, so morale doesn't exist. And that's where I'm like, how long have you been like the overseer? He's like, oh, like 15 years. I'm like, dude, you totally forgot what it's like to be in the trenches.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That you see that a lot, right? When you've got layers and layers of management, that they're not in touch with what's happening, in real time. And yeah, that's definitely where the culture fails.
And that's where this essentially I told him, like, dude, human nature, that's why I brought up like gamification earlier. I'm like, dude, we love games. Yeah. Even the most non-competitive person, if you put something interesting in front of them, they'll do it.
Got it.
And that's where I said, it sucks but W-2 workers, $100 is actually kind of game changing. Can you afford to put like $500 aside a week, company or your money, whatever, that part you can figure out? And he's like, oh yeah, that's like 2 steak dinners. I'm like, I don't know where you go for 2 steak dinners, but I want to try this place. You're paying though.
I'll give you the rest of this advice if I get the steak dinner.
It actually did at the end. It was funny.
That's great.
But essentially I told him, like, yeah, put like the first prize, the most safest and productive, give him like $150 to like Amazon or whatever. Yeah. And then like just to tier it down, like the 5th prize is like $50. It's still good, but it's kind of like I could have done better. Right. In a month and a half, he just did that. I said, prioritize safety and efficiency. Yes. Okay. They were getting injuries like every 4 hours. That was that bad. Gosh. And for math's sake, they were producing like 200,000 units a day. Total in a 24-hour span. Okay. Yeah. For math's sake, it's $1 each. After my like just gamification, I said, and get them taco guys. If they do a good job for the month, like buy them a whole like feast. Mm-hmm. I said, the amount of friends you'll make with that alone. Yeah. They went from the laughing stock of the company to the highest producing company warehouse. And they were doing like 1,200,000 packages a day. Wow. And that's where
I mean, that's such a great example of it's about your people, right? It wasn't like they bought new equipment or they trained people on like more technical skills. It was, let's start treating your people
like people,
more like people, and let's give them, let's recognize them when they do something good. Yeah, it can be that simple.
It was, and then I was just one of those. It was around Christmas time. So their productivity went up and all that. And he bought the taco guy, and I'm the security guard. So I'm sitting at my gate. No one's around. So I'm just watching TV on the company computer when I shouldn't have, but I'm like, it's Christmas. I don't want to be here kind of thing. And one of the boss himself came over and he's like, oh, Josh, why aren't you getting food? I'm like, well, I'm not a warehouse worker. I'm just the guy making sure no trucks come in. He's like, no, you're the reason why we have all this. So come on. And all of them waited for me to go get food. And I was like, oh, thank you so much.
Wow. Aw.
And then, so like the next day he comes over and he's like, all right, so how much do I owe you? And I'm like, like joking, $10,000. It was like big at the time. I'm like, 10 grand. Now that I know all this stuff in hindsight, I'm like, shit, I should have charged him way more.
Right. Wow.
That's really neat. Yeah. He just like looked at me like, that's okay, fine. I hear personal check. Just take it.
Well, that's good. I'm glad he recognized the idea came from you, and that was the catalyst.
Right. Then through a series of events later on, this is much later in the storyline, but essentially I had to get called into the office because one of my supervisors tried to throw me under a literal truck. And so he was interviewing me, and that's where he comes in with the steak dinner as they're interviewing me. And he's like, he says it politely. He's like, I'm pretty sure you're not coming back anytime soon after that. I'm like, no, he tried to kill me. I'm not coming back.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
you got some stories there, Josh.
Oh, yeah, that job alone. Gosh, I have a lot of stories. But that's what sparked me on the whole path. I'm like, oh, that was the easiest $10,000 I ever made. But I'm like, but it was simple observation. I'm part of the subtle thing of starting this. Like, I want to talk to successful people who do this. Why was that so good?
Yeah. Well, I think what I take away from that too is it's not that, coaches and consultants, it's not that we have this immeasurable, no one's ever thought of this before kind of advice. It's that we are that outside perspective looking in, and it can be a simple suggestion, but it's giving it at the right time. It's making sure that it's being received in the right way. Like, he could have been equally offended if you had delivered the suggestion in a different way, right? And
true.
Like, I'm never going to do that. So it's knowing, what information to put in front of your client at the right time and how to deliver it. And then when possible, helping to see it through with them, right? So it isn't, I'll often joke at a training, like, this isn't brain science.
It's not
a lot of the
science.
A lot of the ideas that I share they've been around for a long time. But how do we apply it to your situation, to your people, and make it applicable to your world, right?
100%. So I'm just curious. Let's hypothetical here. Let's say I have a very good, successful law firm, but just everything's falling apart on the back end, like the billing, the customer service. And let's say I give you a call. What would be the first few steps you would do to help me figure this out?
Yeah. So I would talk a little bit about, tell me when it was working. When it was successful, what was happening, who was responsible, what was your size, and kind of figure out what was the breaking point where it went from good to bad. Sometimes that is, we grew too fast, or we lost a critical person and they left with all this knowledge, and the person that took over, never gained the knowledge that was needed. So I would, and sometimes it's a matter of interviewing multiple people, right? That's the other thing is that, you've got he said and she said, and then you got to figure out what's the actual truth. Okay. So getting some different perspectives, talking to some of the attorneys and finding out from their perspective. They might think things are working just fine. They might have no idea that there's a problem. Talking to, the folks that are in the billing department. Maybe they have some complaints about the actual software. So is it a people problem? Is it a technology problem? Is it a systems problem? Maybe the information's not getting relayed the way it should from the attorneys who are doing the work to the, data entry team member who's putting the hours into the software to, the bills being issued to the clients. So people problem, systems problem, technology problem, and kind of figure out, maybe it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add on, like, as if I was the client. I'm like, well, everything was working fine. Well, the whole, if it was working, when was it working? Like, well, it's kind of always been a dog's breakfast, but like, that's business though, kind of thing.
So if I have the response of, well, it's always been that way. Why are you doing it this way? Well, because we've always done it this way. Mm-hmm. Then my first job is helping them to see that to get different results, we've got to do it differently. Right. So helping them to see that, well, if it's always been a problem and now it's just more of a problem, what happens if we let it keep being a problem? What happens if we fix the problem? How does that not only improve your bottom line, but what would be the positive domino effect? Your people would start being happier. The culture would start being more positive. Your reputation might improve. So kind of help paint the picture, right? Of, okay, if we make some changes, how is that going to improve this one department? And then how might it improve outside of that? Helping them go from to hopeless to hopeful, right? And then finding out, okay, who needs to be a part of solving the problem? Because that's another piece too, is making sure that if my client is the law firm, then I need to make sure that I have buy-in from the right people. It can't just be one person who is going to carry the weight of working with me to try to find a solution. So, some of the decision makers need to be a part of the solution. And there's typically, a number of people that will be able to give insight to contribute to, all right, now we've got a new plan to put into place. Who's going to lead that plan? Who's going to be a part of that plan? And then who's going to help sustain that new plan? So making sure that we've got a team approach to solving things and that we've got team buy-in.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, the person that might be calling you is the person that realizes it's a problem, but they have no pull in the company.
Yes. Yeah. So. And I mean, that happens sometimes. Sometimes when I'm out networking, I'll talk to somebody. In fact, young lawyers, oftentimes they'll say, the partner that runs our law practice could 100% use your help. But I've never seen them be open to outside support. Or, so oftentimes, there's, the newer employees or the more of the doers, they see the problems, but they don't always have the decision-making power to help solve the problems.
So I'm just hypothetical side tangent. Yeah. When you're in that circumstance with that lawyer and he says, I see a use for you, but I have no pull. Mm-hmm. Would you pursue the head guy and talk to him and network, or was it because he has after a call or two, you were like, oh wait, this is not going to work? Or do you, okay, I'm asking 3 questions at once. As the first one, would you actually pursue that to see where it goes?
Yeah. So I would, a lot of times I'll start with, well, do you think that, does your firm, in this case, does your firm ever do lunch and learns? That's a great way for me to come in and say hey, I'll do a 60-minute training on improving personal productivity as a lawyer, or, something specific to their industry, to potentially open the door a little crack, and start with something that is more of a general support to the firm, right? Sometimes that's a great way to get the decision maker to start to know me, maybe start to like me. Eventually, the goal, right, is that they trust me enough to say, okay, I do see how you can help. So sometimes I'll suggest that, or I'll say, well, do you think that do you think that the partner would be interested in meeting me simply to learn more about what I do, And so I kind of have to gauge the relationship between the employee and the decision maker. Of course, if they're not comfortable making the introduction, I don't pursue that. And the reality of business for most of us, especially that are more service-based, as much as we want our clients to come to us from a more proactive perspective, they're almost always coming when the pain has gotten to the point that they can't handle it any longer. Right. And so sometimes it's just a matter of, well, hey, keep my name around. And if it gets to the point where you do see your boss or your colleague saying, I think I need some help, there's your opportunity to let them know that, hey, I know somebody who can help. I've learned a lot about buyers, right? You've got now buyers and you've got later buyers. And typically the percentage of now buyers is much smaller than your later buyers. So it's just staying present, staying visible, being a resource. I might say, well, hey, do you think they'd want to be on my newsletter? Or, something casual like that. Hey, maybe I'll connect with them on LinkedIn and just say, hey, I know your associate Tom, would love to be connected with you on LinkedIn. And then all of a sudden they start to see some of my content. My marketing approach is always to educate and provide valuable information. And so that's, one way to get on someone's radar. But it's, in the 15 years that I've been running business, I've learned that what I talk about and how I market and who I meet now are the people that may become my clients months or years later. And so it's a long game.
Oh yeah, it is, especially in the service industry, man.
Yes. Yeah.
Some of the stuff, just the horror stories I've seen. One person was like, "Oh, I'm gonna quit and go full-time coach," and I was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna try to shoot you down, but do you have anyone lined up?" And he's like, "No, they just come to me." I'm like, maybe one or two customers in the scheme of whatever, but that's not gonna be everything.
Yeah. It's a long runway for sure. Particularly in the coaching and consulting, you're asking someone to invest a lot of time, a lot of money, and to get vulnerable with you, right?
Right.
You're seeing behind the scenes. And so that's not a quick decision that people will make, nor should it be, right?
It is. It's a, because there's so many complexities because you're dealing with the ego, the psyche, maybe in admitting that they need help, they feel inferior kind of thing. Because that old mindset, oh, if I ask for help, I'm a weak person kind of thing. Right. And so you have to like coax them like, no, this actually shows that you're stronger kind of thing.
Right. Yep. Yeah. That's where I like to use the sports analogies because I think sometimes that helps people see like, oh, you're right. Elon Musk surrounds himself with brilliant people. He's not the only brilliant mind, right? The reason that, Bill Gates got to where he is he didn't climb that ladder himself. And LeBron James is not one of the greatest of all time because he coached himself throughout his career. He would never be where he is without the support that he put into place. So, why would you be any different as an entrepreneur, as a business owner? Right.
Yeah, it was one of the analogies I gave someone because they were asking how it was a coach trying to get clients. And I was like, I said, kind of like you when you first started this, like, do you have an avatar? Can you say this person without ever saying their name? And I can immediately be like, that's Jenny kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, it's just, I want to help everyone. I'm like, not right now. You want to help a very, very, very specific group of people. Once you establish that and conquer as much as you can, kind of like warfare, you got to expand a little, test that, then expand a little. Yeah. So that's where she was actually one of my guests, and we were just doing strategy calls, and she finally broke it down and just said, Josh, can you just draw me up an avatar? I'm like, sure, give me a week, because that's like, to be honest, I actually don't know what my avatar is, so I have to figure out mine, modify it for yours.
Yeah. And it's ever changing too. I mean, it's funny you bring that up because I'm getting ready to start working with someone who's going to help me with content strategy. And just this morning, I was going through her work. And one of the questions is, who do you specifically work with, or who are your customers? And, I'm much more clear now than I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but it gives me pause to say, all right, it's a good time to ask myself this question and to make sure that I'm not just giving a default answer that was me 24 months ago, but that isn't the business now. So I think those are questions that you want to always be, maybe not always, but you're on a regular basis, you're revisiting who has my avatar been, and is that still my avatar, or am I adding some characteristics? Am I changing some characteristics? Because ideally, your business is ever evolving. You as the leader are evolving. And so who you serve best is going to evolve, right?
Right. And that's kind of what I was telling her. And you did it a much more elegant way. I was just kind of like, especially in the service industry, it is brutal. It is a winner take all situation in most cases. And I'm like, So I sort of told her, I'm like, I would recommend for you, because she's very logical. Nothing bad. It was just like how she approaches very logical.
Yeah.
I felt like I said something else. And I told her, I said, you want someone that is, I said, hypothetically, just throwing it out there, you want someone that's athletic background, has usually a family, because that means they got to knuckle down, makes at least anywhere from 90 to 120K a year, so they can afford paying you the $600 to $800 a month, and it won't break them. I said, for the parenting side, you want like so you can add religion if you want. It doesn't really change anything. A church going family, kids. I said, my joke is 2 dogs, 2 fish, and half a lizard.
Right. Like 2.5 children.
Right.
How does that work?
And that's just like all that I said. Now, did anyone explain that? Did anyone in your life just pop up? She's like, yeah, John, so-and-so over the way. And she's like, wait, what did you just do? I'm like, that is...
It works.
It works.
You proved that it works. Yeah.
I told her, I'm like, I never said John. You figured that one out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm in a networking group. And one of the things that we do every week is we have a specific ask. And, you don't get in trouble, but you get reminded if you say, my ask this week is anyone who owns a business and might need some support planning their goals. Well, nobody thinks of anyone if I say that. But if I said my ask is a lawyer who is a partner at a firm in downtown Cincinnati who has a team of 10 or fewer lawyers, right? The more specific I get, then the more immediately someone will say, oh yeah, John, he's my neighbor and he just became partner at such and such law firm. I can introduce you to him. I never thought of introducing you to him before, but that makes perfect sense. So it is the niches, or the riches are in the niches, right?
And that's where I'm trying to learn YouTube and revamp my show. I'm still going to do interviews, but that's the biggest one. I've been joking with a lot of my coworkers. I've been buying so many Udemy classes about YouTube and this and that. And they're like, what? I'm like, oh, sorry. Yeah, you don't guys care about business. Never mind.
They don't share that same passion as you, huh?
Yeah. And that's where one of them's like, how is Udemy good? I'm like, actually, it's not bad. I said, I always wait for everything's on sale. So the $200 course I pick up for $16.
Right. Right. Yeah. But gosh, there's so many things. Anything you want to learn,
it's there.
Find it. Yeah. Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's just one of those, it's tying back that the courses to the one lady. I said, yeah, I said, because I'm actually asking in a different way. So the client I was working with and helping, I could not adjust her marketing.
Okay. So
she's spending anywhere from $600 to $800 a month, generating no leads whatsoever. And I was asking her, I was like, do you have it set to your followers on Facebook? Or do you have it set to someone like Tony Robbins? Mm-hmm. She's like, you can do that? I'm like, you have it set to your followers, because if it's automatic, it's your followers. I'm like, you need to cut all that money now, quick. And she wouldn't listen to me.
Into the wrong pot.
And she wouldn't listen to me. She's like, you don't know anything about ads. I'm like, I know enough to realize that you're doing the wrong one.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you tell her to go watch a Udemy?
That's what I said. Watch a Udemy. Go buy. If you're going to spend $500, go get a $25 course on Facebook ads.
Right.
And then
that's talk about an area where you should outsource to an expert.
Yeah. That's where I was like,
trying to stay informed on that is.
And I told her, I'm like, the problem with Facebook, it's always changing. Mm-hmm. You think maybe this week, it's going to work next week. And then Facebook just has a weird tantrum, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yep. I don't play in the game of Facebook ads. Luckily I haven't needed to. So it's a whole
most of it's your word of mouth and referrals.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great place for me. Again, I don't do cold connecting on LinkedIn.
Oh, so you're not like Gary Vee, where message 100 people every day on LinkedIn?
Nope. But yeah, I mean, I've certainly gotten a couple of, hey, I saw, my contact Angela shared your post. I haven't talked to her about you yet, but I'm interested, so it's still kind of who but a little bit less direct of word of mouth. But I find that LinkedIn is a great place that I can organically spread my reach, expand my reach.
Most people on LinkedIn are very business minded or professionally going in. It's not like Instagram or YouTube where you're going into just entertainment kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. I don't, it's like, I don't want to think. I just want to laugh kind of thing.
Yes.
That's the biggest one I've noticed with LinkedIn. It's like people that actually are on it, they're like, okay, like this is business. I got to be on still. And then once I'm off, I can slow down.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out the LinkedIn thing because I'm like, I post, I have all these powerful connections, but I'm like, I'm just like a night shift janitor guy with a podcast. Like, I don't do anything interesting.
Yeah, you do. You do a podcast. There's a lot of people in the world that have the idea and haven't done it.
Yeah.
So that elevates you for sure.
Yeah. I don't want to hold you up too long. Is there anything specific that I might have missed that you want to go over?
Do you want me to give you the top level view of the ACEND method?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the ACEND method is, I call it the 6 fundamentals or the foundational skills and strategies that help any individual, but largely professionals and business owners and business leaders to really hone in on the fastest way to achieve greater productivity. So it's an acronym. So I'll go through the 6 components. So the A represents advocate for self. And that's really about how are you carving out time for yourself and taking care of yourself mentally, physically, mind, body, spirit, making sure, particularly for those who are in that entrepreneurial or in that bootstrapping stage, that you are not compromising your own needs, your sleep, your nutrition for the business, because that will lead to burnout, which will therefore lead to your business not making it. So advocating for self, taking care of yourself, making sure that, you put your oxygen mask on you first before anyone else in the cabin. The S is about simplifying your focus, not trying to multitask all day long, not trying to have 100 irons in the fire at once. It is proven that when we can unitask, that we will get things done more quickly, more accurately, more thoroughly. And unfortunately, we live in a world right now where it's so easy to multitask because we're bombarded with information and people's needs and distractions. And so that's a muscle that has atrophied for a lot of individuals. So learning to singular focus. The C is about communicating boundaries, being empowered enough to tell individuals what you need when you're available, making sure that as you're starting a business or if you're customer service based, that does not mean that you're available at any time to anyone, that you're holding boundaries and that you're making it clear how you can best serve the client, how you're going to communicate with your client, or if it's in a team situation, how you're going to support team, but not do the work for team. So making sure that you've got good boundaries in place that are healthy for both or for all parties involved, right? Where am I? A, S, C, E. The E is eliminating distractions and interruptions. This is as easy as turning off all of those pop-up notifications, closing out your inbox, working offline, not having the TV or the radio or podcasts on all the time. We spend so much time in input mode where we're listening and we're learning and we're consuming, and we allow that to pull us in so many different directions, and not necessarily take the time to say, what is most important to me? How can I close out some of the outside world so that I can move forward my priorities, so that I can complete, my project, and so that I don't have to jump every time I hear a sound, a buzz or a ping on our software. So eliminate those distractions and interruptions that you have control over. The N is about, it stands for navigating your priorities. And this is about being proactive. You have to take time to plan your work, and then you go work the plan, right? We need to start each day knowing what's critical for us to spend our time on and what's maybe, nice to accomplish if time allows. Making sure that at the beginning of the week or the beginning of the month, it's really clear what activities are going to have your greatest return on investment of time and energy. So making sure that you're not starting each day reactive, wondering, what fires do I have to put out? What emails do I have to respond to? Starting out with a plan in place. And then the D is developing systems. So once you've got these personal habits and routines in place, then how do you start putting systems into place for your business? Systems are, about being able to do things the same way repeatedly so that it starts to take less time. You start doing it better. You're consistent from a customer perspective or a vendor perspective. It's predictable for those that you work with. And it helps to establish your brand. So developing systems that support the team, they support you, and ultimately they support the business and the consumers of your product or service. So that is the ACEND method. And that's what I walk my clients through on, a personal level and then into their business.
That's awesome. I really like the eliminating distractions part.
Yes.
That is the biggest one I've come across. Well, just even normal people, we're so distracted.
The statistic right now,
Okay.
every couple of months, I go through statistics that I use in my trainings and make sure that they're current and accurate. And the statistic used to be that the average American worker gets distracted or interrupted every 11 minutes. It is now every 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. So if you think about an 8-hour day and getting distracted about, even if we said every 5 minutes, think that's like start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. It's exhausting. It's exhausting for your brain. It's exhausting for your body. And nobody can get quality work done in 3 to 5 minute spurts, right? And a lot of that is our own doing. Just put the phone away, flip it up, upside down so you can't see the screen.
Right. Like obviously set it, your notifications, like if mom or sister calls, they're the priority.
Yeah. But you don't need all the others.
Yeah. They get the notification. Everyone else is muted kind of thing.
Yeah. Or, like right now, like I close my inbox, I don't need to see it if an email comes in for an hour that I'm in an important conversation. I'll go and respond to that later today. I'm not, no one's life is hanging in the threads because I'm not on my inbox. So it's a big game changer.
It really is.
Most people don't realize how often it's happening until you start observing it. So that's a good challenge to the listeners. Just, throughout the rest of your day, pay attention to how many times your mind wanders, and that's kind of an internal distraction, or there's something in your environment that externally interrupts you. And just start to pay attention to can I minimize that one? Can I eliminate that one? If I go to a different part of the house or a different part of the office, can I, get some more uninterrupted time? There's a lot that we can manipulate and reduce the number of distractions and interruptions for sure.
Well, you heard the lady. Stop getting distracted, everyone.
That's right. You can thank me later.
Shoot her an email, if she's not on the podcast. Absolute honor and a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, great. great. I enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that there's some good golden nuggets in there that will help people be able to make some small changes for how they're running their day and running their life, and finding a next level of productivity.
Oh, there was so many nuggets of value in there. It's like
Good.
We could go through another hour just explaining it all.
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to get interrupted by my children in about 10 minutes. So
yeah, you got soccer, so we got to go.
That's right.
All right. Have a safe one.
Josh, thank you. Yeah. Will you send me an email when the podcast is?
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're a awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.